Hello everybody, my name is Kirsten Dunlop. I'm the Chief Executive of an organisation called EIT Climate-KIC. Our principal focus is on tackling climate change, both decarbonisation of high emissions activities and adaptation and resiliency to climate change effects, and to do that through the power of innovation. Our main focus is on systemic change, on harnessing the power of innovation to learn how to change complex systems, starting with ourselves. We're a network organisation. We work with and through others with a wide community across Europe, but we also have activities in Southeast Asia, in Sub-Saharan Africa, in South America, and partnerships in the US, in Israel, and in Australia. Our approach is one of combining both developing sources of innovation and new solutions, business models, technologies, mindsets, governance models, policy innovation, and so on, but harnessing them, designing the combination of those innovation actions and deploying them in portfolios that are place-based portfolios that are constructed to really test for multiple solutions, test for possibilities for change through multiple solutions happening simultaneously on the ground and connected to one another through processes of sense-making and meaning-making and active learning. And the objective of our activities is to harness that experiential learning activity directly to decision-making, to policy procurement, planning, and to allocation of capital and investment. One achievement that I am particularly proud of is the fact that we have moved from theory to practice. We have launched, through activities that we've called deep demonstrations, a concerted effort in systems innovation, in the practice of systems transformation, of learning or catalysing change in a systemic way through the power of innovation. We've done that in real places, in cities, in Europe, in regions, and we're working also on agreements around country-level transformations. And what that says to me is that this is long-term, or at least when I say long-term, we don't have that much time. So let's say 5-10 years work, at least. It is very, very difficult work. It involves crashing into and crashing through a number of barriers formed by our current assumptions, our assumptions about what innovation is, about what learning is, about what's possible, and our tendency to think mechanistically in linear ways and in siloed ways. So it's an achievement from my perspective to have put ourselves into the position of being a vehicle for experimentation and a space of demonstration and exploration of possibility. One of the principal obstacles that we face is the pressure for tangible results in short time frames to prove a concept before it will be funded or before impact expectations are open to it, before we can really get an alignment of interests on the table. The obstacle we're often working with is the obstacle of habit, the habit of expectation of predictable results, of visible outcomes within short time frames, of the expectation that kind of conversion of action into quick wins is a proof of concept and the proof of concept that people want to see, when in fact we are talking about dealing with mindsets, capabilities, and with self-transformation, which is the most difficult thing of all, because it really it runs into the challenge of the extent to which we are aware of the need to transform and the extent to which we are open to the depth of curiosity, risk-taking, and comfort with ambiguity that requires. My favorite example of effective collaboration to address a complex issue, historically my mind tends to go to something like the Montfleur scenario process and the extraordinarily difficult, complex transformation of South Africa, and the learnings that have come since on where that worked remarkably and where it didn't. Another example is a deep demonstration we call Long-Termism, whose object is to achieve or catalyze systemic change in the financial services industry and in financial thinking around time more broadly, In other words, to tackle the problem of our world being constructed around a notion of the value of zero, of time to zero. The faster we can get things, the closer the deal, the shorter the second of high value transactions and so on, is an economic value as well as a social value. Instantaneity is a social and economic value. And unfortunately what that drives is it supports and underpins, for example, things like notions of discounting the future in order to privilege the present that are enshrined in our notions of accounting frameworks. It drives, in many instances, consumerism. I think of a thing that I want, I order it instantly, and I get it as instantly as possible. And it really hinders our capability of thinking about long, slow, patient partnership in ways that take their inspiration from the natural world, that are organic and that understand and look for interdependencies and privilege the importance of investing for the future in our present actions as opposed to maximizing outcomes in the present, no matter the cost to the future. And that, of course, is one of the root cause issues in terms of the industrial and economic models we have at the moment. And that has been a journey of bringing together extremely different actors to work together, to form views, to bring very, very different views, and to coalesce around a vision of possibility, coalesce around exploring real options for addressing, introducing and experimenting with that kind of structural order of change, and also coming together to solve around the problem of how would one finance that kind of work, and beginning to launch both information platforms, collaboration platforms, and a funding platform. For me, a key thing, or a couple of the key things to do to develop more effective problem solving, first and foremost, this is about mindset and capability. And I think one of the key learnings I have over the last actually 25, 30 years of work in this space is that we need to retrain ourselves how to think. We need to teach ourselves to see the world differently, see ourselves differently, and learn to think. For example, learn to shift our thinking from scarcity thinking to abundance mindsets, really shift our sense of the properties of physical things, how much more possibilities are there in the materials that we use, in the way in which we think about time, the way in which we think about what work is, and to shift our thinking into a much more integrative space. And for that, for example, bringing art and science back together so that we can begin to understand our decision-making. Well, we know that our decision-making is not rational. How do we act socially, politically, economically on that fact and begin to reintegrate the power of imagination into our rational decision-making, or our post-rationalization of decision-making? So start to expand the resources with which we think individually, which therefore expands the resources with which we think collectively. Thank you very much.